Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Monday, the 22nd day of July, 2024, and what a difference a day makes. Yesterday at this time, we're doing a couple of stories about the attack of Israeli jets on the Houthis way down south in Yemen, going some 1,700 kilometers and hitting their port where the weapons continue to be brought in from Iran to the Houthis to shoot at these various ships in the Red Sea. Some 200 different instances. They've done this since October 7th of last year. And finally, Israel said enough is enough. And they bombarded the port and let them know that they're not against Yemen, but they're certainly against this part of Yemen where the Houthis are there as a client state of Iran. We talked about what this means with last day's Bible prophecy, how it may lead to a regional war with Iran. And we're looking at that. And all of a sudden, boy, things changed. Just like a week ago when we had the assassination attempt on President Trump. Yesterday, the bombshell that was given to us. Now, you have to understand something to put this in context. This last Saturday, Joe Biden wrote a note and he sent it out to the press of America and the press of the world that he's still in the election. He's gonna be the candidate. He's gonna be this week coming up. He's going to be back on the campaign trail, and let's stop any talk about him dropping out. And then yesterday, on all these Sunday shows, the political Sunday shows, he had his campaign manager on, a number of them, and some of his surrogates saying, yes, he's running, he's going to be there, and let's not talk about him dropping out. And then about 12:45 or so Eastern time yesterday, what do we have? We have him sending a letter saying, well, basically, I'm saying bye-bye. I'm dropping out. I'm not going to run for a second term. I'm going to use all my energy, whatever is left of it, to do finish my first term as president of the United States. And then, as an afterthought, about 30 minutes later, oh yeah, and by the way, Kamala Harris, I'm going to, basically endorse her to be the next president, and she's up for the job, this and that. And of course, the hubbub it caused, as we talked about yesterday, the uproar. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about that too and some of the fallout. Now, what we do here, we always have to make it very clear when we do breaking news, this is not your normal breaking news program. It's only breaking news with respect to something that happens that'll affect the world based on what last day's Bible prophecy teaches us. As we have indicated to you, the Bible is very clear at setting the stage of what the world will be like at the time of the end. We have a book out called 25 Signs. We're near the end. It's on our website, Educating Our World, under the heading of Bible Prophecy, where we actually have 12 books on Bible prophecy. But we promote this because everything's free. We never charge anything. It's all free. And like my wife said, you ought to tell them also, we don't have an email list. We're not going to bug you. We want you to have the material. This is our ministry. And we go into great detail about the various signs at the time of the end. And one of the signs we continue to emphasize, sign number 11, the United States will not be a player in last days Bible prophecy. Something will happen to it. The events that will take place in the last days will be without the United States front and center. So that's why we do these stories about the U.S. politics, not because we're political animals, as it were, but because it makes a big deal with respect to what's going to happen in the future. And so that's why we deal with these. So again, please take advantage of the resources that we have. And also, too, one other word, we've got books on 65 different topics, biblical topics: God, the Bible, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, the afterlife, Christian living, Bible and science. Please take advantage of them. We go into great detail answering some 2,000 plus questions that you often ask about these questions, about these issues. And so again, it's there for you. It's there for your edification. So we just want you to take advantage of them. Again, everything's free. And so we appreciate you praying for us, shamelessly promoting it. Reason I have to do it, we had over 100 different subscribers, 100 new subscribers, more than that as of yesterday, from yesterday to today with all this going on. They continue to pile up here, and we're very thankful for it. But that's why from time to time we need to reiterate what we do here and why we do it, to put things into perspective, because today we have a couple of stories, actually 3 stories that are very, very interesting. with respect to how this all fits with the last day scenario. So let's get to it. We're going to talk first and foremost. This is interesting. Democrats, as they usually do, are moving fast to coalesce behind Kamala Harris as their candidate for the November election. However, and this is interesting, the New York Times board, editorial board, wants Kamala Harris out of the race because they don't think she can win. And of all things, Benjamin Netanyahu picks this week. He has arrived in the U.S. and he's set to speak before both houses of Congress on Wednesday. What interesting timing, isn't it? Well, let's look at this. Headline number one. All 50 Democrat Party U.S. state chairs back Kamala Harris. This is a Reuters story. It didn't take long, did it? All 50 Democrat Party state chairs have thrown their weight behind Vice President Kamala Harris to be the party's new presidential nominee, according to sources familiar with the matter. The chairs held a conference call on Sunday after President Joe Biden announced he was stepping aside as the party's candidate. Following President Biden's announcement, our members immediately assembled to unite behind the candidate who has a track record of winning tough elections. A track record of winning tough elections. When she was nominated, when she tried to run for president, when Biden won 4 years ago, she got 1.5% of the vote. She didn't win anything. She dropped out before the Iowa caucus, before it even started. Anyway, and it was a proven leader on issues that matter to Americans. This is absolute nonsense. Reproductive freedom, gun violence prevention, climate protection, justice reform, and rebuilding the economy. Why does the economy need to be rebuilt if Joe Biden's done such a great job in the last 4 years? Anyway, said Ken Martin, president of the Association of State Democratic Committees, in a statement. That person is our sitting Vice President, Kamala Harris. Reuters reported earlier that the group had backed the vice president, with one source saying there was full support for her being at the top of the ticket. Now, many Democrats have come out, so like we mentioned yesterday, and have backed Harris to be the party's presidential nominee against Trump in November. But some of the powerful party members, including former House Representative Nancy Pelosi, stayed quiet, as is Barack Obama. He did not endorse her. In fact, one billionaire who is a very large donor to the Democrat Party, said putting Kamala Harris as the candidate is Joe Biden's way of getting back at the Democrat Party for removing him as the candidate. Big in your face. I won't use the exact words he used. You can imagine what Biden was doing by this, because he thinks that she doesn't have a chance of winning, which is going to bring us to our next story, which is this. Headline number two, the New York Times editorial board wants Kamala Harris out of the race. She's not even in it yet. They want her out already. The NYT, the New York Times editorial board, wants Vice President Kamala Harris off the 2024 ticket because of profound concerns about her electability. The push to dump the nation's first black vice president was posted just after President Joe Biden announced he would not run in the 2024 election, and it could threaten Democrat turnout in November. The board first provided some throat-clearing praise for Biden by agreeing to step down when his term ends in January. He is greatly increasing the chance that his party is able to protect the nation from the dangers of returning Donald Trump to the presidency. It's the New York Times, and they dropped the hammer. Choosing Miss Harris would be a reasonable path for Democrats to take. She has been Mr. Biden's running mate, and while no votes were cast for her as a presidential candidate in primaries, that's for darn sure, neither one, the president's voters expected her to be on the ticket in November. Nonetheless, party delegates should have a voice in a decision of this consequence. There are other qualified Democrats who could take on Mr. Trump and win, and picking a candidate without a real contest is how the party got into a position of anointing a standard bearer that large majorities of Democrats and independents had profound concerns about. While the hour is late, there is still time to put leading candidates through a process of public scrutiny before the party's nomination convention begins on August 19th to inform the choice of a nominee and build public support. Now, the New York Times instant push to demote Harris after Biden's exit helps to explain why so many black politicians were publicly eager to keep the Biden-Harris ticket for 2024. Members of the Congressional Black Caucus are throwing their support behind Biden as a growing number of Democrats call for him to suspend his 2024 campaign. Now, what's interesting about this, particularly this last line, they need to go through a process. Well, it looks like there's not going to be any process whatsoever. There's a phone call they had this, with I guess it's a Zoom meeting with these 50 heads all at once of the different states, 50 states, the head of the Democrat Party, and each of them agree, well, Biden wants us to support Harris. We're going to be unanimous here. We're going to get behind her. So much for their people voting, so much for hearing from the common people there. Again, this is the leaders, the ones they're telling the party what's best for them. They had a man that ran basically unopposed. They made sure there was no one opposing him. He got 99% of the votes in the various primaries. And yet they decided he's not worthy now to be their candidate. Well, once they saw who he, sadly, his physical and mental condition made it clear at the debate that he's certainly not up to the task. So now all of a sudden they decided he was going to be the candidate. Now they're going to decide Kamala Harris is going to be without any type of vote. And I guarantee you, just like what happened 4 years ago, if she was put to the test with other candidates, she would not get the majority of the votes from the American public. Again, only 1.5% she got before the primaries, before the Iowa caucuses, and she had to step down because it was embarrassing how bad she was doing. So anyway, this is where we're at on this. And so we'll see. Harris, as of now, polls badly against Trump. Now, here's the thing. However, watch for the media to give wall-to-wall coverage in the next 4 months. How great she is. She's a trailblazer, would make a great president. If the election is close, then the Republicans should worry. You say, what do you mean by that? All right, we're going to take a little aside here and do a story and tell you why the Republicans should worry if it gets close. And I'll let you make the conclusions, draw your own conclusions. They're going to be rather obvious. And this is about the Bellweather counties. Have you heard of them? Many people have. There are 22 counties in the U.S. that managed to vote for the winning party in every single election from 1988 to 2016. Their finger was so tightly on the pulse of America that they not only picked a winner each time, but managed to accurately flip parties 4 times in that period. And this article, this is from a few years ago, mentions who these Bellwether counties are. There's 22 of them. And what happens is sometimes they vote Democrat, the next election Republican. They flip back and forth. In other words, they're not settled on one of the two parties. They read the pulse of the American people, and it's interesting. Since 1988, and actually there's a couple others that go further back of that to 2016. Every single election, these counties in the U.S., 22 of them, always picked the winning candidate. And so as they go, so goes the country. And then the article goes on to say, but what if we told you that only one out of these 22 counties voted for Biden in 2020? How did the others all get it so wrong? Let's take a closer look. And it goes and talks about how important they are. Their significance should not be downplayed. They're a rare and unique property of having a perfect demographic mix that allows them to vote for either party based on the merits of each election in a way that they consistently vote for the winning party. Think about what it takes and what is required for a county to consistently get the election right. And the article says, don't simply gloss over this. Take the time to ponder and realize this is no mean feat. It requires a lot more than pure luck. It far surpasses any statistical explanation because at the end of the day, we're dealing with real people with real personalities, concerns, and aspirations, which happens to align perfectly with the whole American population. Their concerns are real. Their hopes are real. The matters the matters that weigh their mind are real. Their emotions and decisions making process are real. They're not a statistical curiosity, but the perfect distillation or embodiment of the whole country's sentiment. So each time as they go, so goes the country. Okay, all 22 of them. Now, what are the odds that this happens by chance every 4 years? And this person said, if you take a coin and flip it 22 times, what are the odds of getting 21 heads or 21 tails? And the odds are impossible. It's just not possible. In fact, you flipped a coin, I think the odds are impossible. You get 10 straight heads or tails. Anyway, and the author says, have you looked at the results of these counties? If you've done your research and found the 2020 results for each of these counties, you should find the results extremely puzzling. And the author of the article says, so did we. They go into great detail and list them. And here's the key. Donald Trump won 21 out of the 22 parties by a double-digit margin, The ones that always choose the winner in the election have always been the bellwether counties, yet not in 2020. It's the one they did. In fact, the only one he lost was Cle Elum County there in Washington State. He lost by 2.4%, where they were big on mail-in ballots there. And otherwise, something like, I can't remember what the statistics were. I remember at first one story where it said won by 16% in these counties, another by 13%. I believe it was double digits, but the point is he won 21 out of the 22 counties. That always, 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 because of the demographic, picks the winner of the presidential election. Yet somehow, amazingly, it didn't do it the last time. I'll let you decide what went on there. Okay. I don't think we have to say much more. All right, let's move on to a very, very important story. And the timing of this is incredible. Never a dull moment, right? Headline 3, Netanyahu to meet Biden in the U.S., and he's seeking a high-profile meeting with Donald Trump also. The prime minister's address to the joint Congress is going to be Wednesday. Is the centerpiece of his trip, aimed at securing international support for ongoing war in Gaza, highlighting the plight of Israeli hostages and discussing threats from Iran, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to leave on Monday, that's today, Monday morning, for his first visit to Washington since returning to office in late 2022. He is scheduled to meet lame duck U.S. President Joe Biden, who announced yesterday he's withdrawing from the presidential race. Netanyahu and Biden are scheduled to meet on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, Netanyahu will address a joint session of Congress. Now, here's something interesting. He will also meet with Vice President Kamala Harris and National Security Advisor, the woke liar Jake Sullivan. Aides to the prime minister have been trying to arrange a meeting with former President Donald Trump, but have not yet succeeded. They remain hopeful that a meeting can be scheduled during Netanyahu's visit. Now, if you recall, Trump was very unhappy with Netanyahu after the 2020 election because Netanyahu was the first world leader that congratulated Joe Biden after the on election night after the results came in, and Trump really had some not very flattering things to say about Netanyahu. So they're trying to get a meeting with Trump. We'll see what happens there. Now, Netanyahu may also travel to New York or Florida, where his eldest son has been residing for the past several months. The prime minister might extend his visit to spend a weekend with Yair, that's his son, and celebrate his birthday on Friday. The speech in Congress is a focal point of Netanyahu's trip aimed at gaining international legitimacy for the continuation of the war. Part of his address will focus on the Israeli hostages still held in Gaza, on the acts of heroism during the Hamas attack, et cetera, et cetera. Now he's going to highlight the special relationship, we know that, between the U.S. and Israel, thank them for the aid, yada, 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 and go through the list of the threats that Israel still has. Of course, you've got Hezbollah in the north. Gaza is not finished yet. They've got to make sure the border's secure there between Egypt and Gaza. The problem with the Houthis, which they worked on taking care of the other day. And of course, you've got some of the surrogates in both Lebanon and Syria of Iran that are there causing problems. And the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, same thing. 7 different instances, 7 different places surrounding Israel. They have, groups that want to destroy them, want to annihilate them. So anyway, he's going to talk about the hostage negotiation, et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to be what the trip's all about. It should be real interesting. There's a number of Democrats who are going to, like his last talk, when Obama was president, that boycotted the talk. They're anti-Israel, anti-Semitic. And so we'll see what happens. It's going to be fascinating to watch and see what takes place, because what he's going to be dealing with now when he talks to Joe Biden is this lame duck president. So here's our conclusion of this, and here's where we're at right now. Biden is now the proverbial lame duck. However, with his mental state and his disdain for Netanyahu and Israel, it's possible, like Obama, he will make some moves that will again thwart Israel's goal in keeping their country secure. Remember Obama, when Netanyahu came to the White House, he made him come through the back door, not the front door. Well, similar things may happen, and now that Biden didn't have to run again, he's a lame duck. So the true Joe Biden, with his present mental state, maybe it'd be remember the enraged Biden that we saw a few times in this last few months. Maybe we'll see him again. That's one of the worries there. Okay. Also, supposedly Kamala Harris has signaled that nothing will change with respect to the U.S.'s, situation with Israel, and changing the relationship if she's elected will not take place. It'll be pretty much stay the course, which is not necessarily encouraging, because as we've documented here every day, they haven't been encouraging the Israel to win at all. Now, remember, we talked about this yesterday. Her true nature will come out as a senator. Her voting record was far left, worse than even crazy Bernie. And so, it was an apostate Jew, anti-Semitic Jew. Her voting record was worse than Bernie's. She's the far, far furthest left. Also, recall we had this story a couple of weeks ago. She recently applauded those who are boycotting and protesting Israel on college campuses for their, when Israel's fighting for their survival. She admired the enthusiasm of these protesters. At the same time, we did the story, which became public, that Iran was the one behind all the protesters, hiring agitators, professional agitators to go on campus, funding all this. And yet she was admiring the enthusiasm of these protesters. So watch out. Now, as for Trump, again, he was angry with Netanyahu because the last election, as Netanyahu was the first world leader who sucked up to Biden and congratulated him for his so-called victory there 4 years ago. All right, so we're in a really interesting situation now, aren't we? And we got two futures for the U.S. One good and one horrible. The good one, the Donald Trump will give us a reprieve. America can be made great again. Israel will be strong and have support. We won't see things what happened in these last 4 years, like with Afghanistan, like with the war with in Ukraine, Russia invading Ukraine, or even October 7th. That would never happen under Donald Trump's watch. But if it's more of the same, if Kamala Harris wins and the Democrats take over or continue their job they're doing, then again, we're game, set, and match for the U.S. It's sad to say, but it's true. So we'll see. And either way, we'll be here. We'll be, encouraging you because, we know that our citizenship is not in heaven, as Paul told the Philippians, that we are strangers and pilgrims in this world. We're here to be salt and light, to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, to testify to him. Because the real story is he's coming back someday and he's going to set up his kingdom, and there's signs everywhere that this is going to take place. And as we mentioned, again, in our 25 signs, we're near the end, we list 70 different specific signs that, 70 different specific details of these 25 signs that have already been fulfilled, that the Bible predicted about what will happen in the last days, and 30 others that are on the way of getting fulfilled. And so the evidence is strongly there that God's word is true. These things are going to happen. Now, how they're going to all pan out, we don't know. And so we'll be here to observe it. But whatever way it occurs, we know that God is in control. Jesus Christ is Lord, and that's our message here always on Breaking News. All right, I'm Don Stewart. We'll be back with you later for another edition of Breaking News. And until then, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.